so sick of this manager, man. I'm so sick. I'm so sick of this manager. I can't believe we didn't win. Can't believe it. I actually can't believe it. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, where we react to the latest Arsenal news, matches, transfers, etc., after Arsenal have drawn 0-0 at home against Crystal Palace in a game which can only be described as the biggest reveal of how timid Arsenal can be without a certain Kieran Tierney in the squad. It was a weird game. It was a really, really weird game. Oh, God. Really strange one. There were some really good defensive performances from the team today. Granit Xhaka, Dani Ceballos, Hector Bellerin, unbelievably good. Holding and David Luiz, really good as well. Leno, really good when he was called upon. The forward line, nowhere near as on it as we've seen him in the past. Lacazette was couldn't really get into the game at all. The time that he did get into the game, Hector Bellerin took the ball off his feet, unfortunately. Then you've got Bukayo Saka, again, really was not as effective as we have done. You have to say credit to Crystal Palace's defence. Crystal Palace were really good defensively, really set up to frustrate us all day. Tactically, I think there's an issue with the left-hand side. If you aren't going to play a left footer at left back, playing David Luiz over Gabriel, who is also a left footer, I think was really limiting to us on the left hand side. But Mainsley was bad. Mainsley was really, really bad. And we support the guy. Like, we really do support the guy on the channel, but you have to just say, wow. It was really, really bad. Thank you to Noah Wheeler, who said he would be joining up as a member after today's match. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the win for you, Noah, but thank you so much for joining up. And if you have indeed joined up as an expert member, let me just check if you indeed have. If you haven't, it's fine. Just like to check to make sure I can invite you to the expert. You haven't, but that's fine. So if you wanted to join up as an expert member, feel free, and you can join the Discord server. Let's go through some of your comments. I've seen some of you say Bellerin wasn't good, which I'm finding really odd, to be honest. Really odd. I'm really struggling to understand. I mean, please enlighten me as to why you think Bellerin was bad today, because I don't really see what you saw there. Oh, dearie me. Malhotra, let me just get that comment because I just missed it. Well, very average game. Some good performances, some bad. One thing is becoming really clear, though. I think it's time to start finding options to sell Pepe and reduce the losses that we have spent on him. Sorry, I've had a gin, so... Martin Rene, Ronez, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Xhaka loses the ball, then wins it, and people praise him. Not good enough. Wow, I think that is harsh. I think Xhaka defensively, he lost the ball, I think twice. One of those, no, maybe three times. One of those are when there was no options, so he felt like he had to take the ball into midfield, which is completely fair enough, and he was crowded out and he lost the ball. The other time was, obviously, he slipped right at the end of the game. He slipped. He slipped. If you want to blame a man for slipping, feel free. It wasn't a bad touch. He just slipped in that moment. And then there was one other where he did poorly give the ball away, and fair play to crap all over him, if you like. But defensively, he was great. I don't really have anything to say about that. I get that people are frustrated. I really do get people are frustrated with the draw. I'm frustrated that we didn't win, but I think you still need to think objectively. I don't really get the agenda against Bellerin in this game. Trust me, I've sat here and I've criticised Bellerin when he deserves criticism. He doesn't deserve criticism today. He just doesn't. I really don't understand what people have watched if they think that was a bad game. He defended so well. Bellerin was brilliant at the back. Really good at defending. I don't know what people have watched. If you're purely judging him on going forwards, even then, I don't see what you are seeing. I really don't get it. I don't get the agenda against him there. And and this is not coming from someone that has like always been on the back of Bellerin saying, yeah, he's the greatest right back in the world. I haven't. I've turned around and said that we need to upgrade on him. I've turned around and said that maybe we need to move on from Bellerin. But I'm objective enough to turn around and say that I thought he was good today. I really don't understand what there is. What there was wrong. In the first half, offensively, he was better. In the second half, he wasn't able to get as far forward anywhere near as much. We didn't utilise the right-hand side. We barely used our right-hand side in an attacking sense. We tried to force the ball down the left-hand side, and it didn't work. It didn't work. And yes, Ronk says Bellerin stopped Laka from scoring. It was one moment in the game. It weren't great. Fair play. But other than that, I really don't get what you guys have seen there. And I'm not. You're entitled to another opinion. I just don't see what you've seen there. Defensively, Bellerin was brilliant today. Really, really good. I just don't really understand the rhetoric there. Iron Cub says, Tom, I think Bellerin sometimes makes the wrong run and makes it more difficult for Pepe and Emile Smith-Rowe, but overall, he wasn't bad. Juan said he did not give anything going forwards and crowded the spaces unnecessarily. Again, I'm basing it off the whole performance. I'm basing it off of the whole performance, and I'm not just judging on what happened going forwards. And I've said defensively, he was brilliant. And there isn't a single person in this chat box that can say that Bellerin was not defensively brilliant today. He was. He was really good in the defensive third. There are questions about going forwards, but I'm not have people sitting here saying he was atrocious, he was awful, because that's not true. And you've got an agenda if you're saying that. Sorry, but you do, because that is just the fact that going backwards defensively, he was really good. And you might not be able to see that, but I'm sorry. That's just how I've seen it. Let's have a look. JD says Bellerin is just good at planting trees and fashion. Wow. I mean, he's allowed interests outside of football, so you can take your personal stuff away from here, to be honest. A says Alba hasn't got the balls to change the game on his own. We miss a Sanchez type player. Nana GK says Pepe looked lost. DN says it's what we don't see is the defensive stuff. Yeah, we don't see the defensive stuff. He contains Zaha really well, along with Holding, says Teng Wang. James Duya says Bellerin was poor going forwards, but good in defence, but still not good enough. As I said, overall, oh, I'm so sick of that. Yeah, I'm so sick of you. Gary Hardy says Xhaka was good at defending his own mistakes. He lost possession 17 times today. 17 times. And I think when you look at what ultimately, I get it. I understand what you're saying. The losing of possession comes from him trying to force the passes. He comes from trying to force the passes. And sometimes we moan at him for going backwards too often. We moan at him all the time for going backwards. Before the red card, he was terrible. Granit Xhaka was bad. He was really bad for the first part of the season. Since he's come back from his red card, he's just a different player. And I will not have just a switch of going straight back to saying he's shit, because that is not true. He was not bad in this game. I don't get what people see sometimes. It really frustrates me that we had a fantastically really good defensive game. At the other end of the pitch, we were really poor. Really, really poor in the final third. Could not create anything. Emile Smith-Rowe was really quite poor with his final ball. He tried to make stuff happen. He was energetic, as he always is, and he's really dynamic. But I just don't really get the final pass. The final pass from him today was just off. Maybe he needs a rest. Maybe Smith-Rowe needs a bit of a rest, because his final pass, especially when he got to the byline, tried to cut it back a few times, it just was, the power wasn't there. The cross wasn't there. For me today, we really missed Tierney. Like, we so missed Tierney today. And when you're looking at what needs to happen on that left-hand side, we just lack so much fluidity with the left-hand side passes, the ball's going through the left-hand side, playing the ball out back, the through balls from the left footer. That's really frustrating for me, is that we've got two right-footed players on the left. That is the only thing I can really turn around to Arteta and say, I think you got that one wrong. I think playing Maitland-Niles in an unorthodox left back, not left wing back position, really did hamstring us, is probably the best way to say it. Nana GK says Xhaka was good defensively. I agree with you. I don't understand. I mean, we was on the watch along with Hugh, and me and Hugh both said he was one of our man of the matches for the game. It's really weird coming on and seeing the amount of hate. I just think it's misplaced. Sam Trester says we missed Tierney and against Newcastle. What did you want? It's there was a lot of players in that game that played a lot of football, and there was a tiredness about things. Javier says we've loaned Kolasinac. He wanted to go. He wasn't getting any minutes, but it's very, very clear that Arsenal do need to invest in a backup left back or a left-footed side player, because it's getting to the point now where you have to go, what is the future of Ainsley Maitland-Niles here? And I know this is going to come across as very reactionary, very, very reactionary. But you have to think, where's he going to get in? Where's Maitland-Niles going to get into this team? He's not going to get in at right back. Whatever you think of Bellerin, he's not going to get in at right back. Is he going to get in at midfield? Probably not. Is he going to get in a left back based on that performance? He's going to get nowhere near that left back. Absolutely nowhere near that left back position. So you have to think, if he's a sellable asset and someone was to come in with 20 million for Mainsley, you might be a little bit silly not to accept that. So yeah, King Life says, who was the man of the match? Probably Dani Ceballos. Dani Ceballos was excellent. His passing was great. His tenacity. It was the Dani Ceballos that we've missed for a long, long time. What we saw today. So that certainly for me he was really good. Really, really good. As I said, I thought Xhaka had a good game. I don't agree with the people who don't agree with that. I don't see. Defensively, I thought Bellerin was really solid. Offensively, he lacked a bit today. Really did. It wasn't the best, other than the first 30 minutes. Bellerin was kind of a threat. If you actually go, I know we come out of that game and the most things that you remember are from the last half of the match, but actually in the first half, Bellerin going forwards, I thought nicking the ball off Lacazette was good. Second half didn't really offer anything going down that right hand side, but defensively was really solid. But I think Dani Ceballos is probably the one for me that takes it, to be fair. Javier 100% with Tom on Dani Ceballos. Dave said yes, Ceballos was head and shoulders man of the match. Suraj says Holding man of the match. Holding was excellent today. Holding was really good, really justifying that new contract, which is great to see. Manuel says today showed us how we need a bigger, stronger player to hold play up in games like this. Lacazette didn't have it in him. Just seeing Benteke doing it and how it helped Palace's attack. Tony Mills says, Tom, when we don't win, some fans just revert to let's blame Bellerin, Xhaka excuses. They're still fans, Tony. I know where you're coming from. They are still fans, and I know a lot of them are my members. I don't agree with them in regards to the evaluations of Bellerin and Xhaka. They're entitled to that opinion. I just think that it's very kind of personal. I think it's very personal when it's that associative with a bad performance, because they were good. I thought they were good today. If you think this performance, if you think the thing that was wrong with Arsenal today was Granit Xhaka and Bellerin, I don't know what to tell you. In a 0-0 draw, if you think what was wrong with Arsenal was Bellerin and Xhaka today, then wow. Wow. Mini Boss says, missed Marie. His accurate passes forward, can't blame Ainsley. Yeah, another player that we missed today. A left-footed centre-back. All this of going, we can play with two right-footers. We can play with two left-footers. No, we can't. We can't play with two of the same-footed players in this system. It doesn't work for us. The way that we want to play out from the back. You might have been able to do it back in the day because you didn't play out from the back anywhere near as much as we do now. We cannot play out from the back with two of the same-footed player in defence. It just doesn't work. You just can't do that. You just can't. Daniel Roberts says, our biggest problem was David Luiz, always so slow on the ball. And therefore, again, Dan, the biggest problem today in a 0-0 draw is not a defender. It's just not a defender, I don't think. I don't know where it can come from. So why is a defender the biggest problem for us in a 0-0 draw? Like, offensively, like a centre-back, specific. Like, I just don't really... In the final third, we missed Tierney, who I know is a defender. But we missed that crossing. But for me, the final third comes down to those attacking players. Smith Rowe didn't have the best of games today. Saka didn't have the best of games today. Laka and Aubameyang. 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 I can't. I don't know what he offers now, and he can't be dropped. It's yes or no question. Does Aubameyang start against Newcastle? And if he doesn't, who plays instead? Who? If Martinelli is back, is he starting over Aubameyang? Because he is for me. He is for me. But I know that won't happen. Aubameyang will not be dropped. It just does not happen at this club. We just, for some reason, can't drop him. I kind of think the last time we did drop him was against, was it Brighton? No. Yes? No. I can't remember the last time we dropped him. I can't. Do you drop Aubameyang? Moroccan Gunner says no. Or will he be dropped was what I asked. Javier says no. Iron Cub says nah. Martinelli. Pranjal says no. David Blashik says no. Kian's in the chat. Kian, tell me what you thought of Bellerin's performance today. I'll be interested to know. Pedro says yes. You think he will be dropped? Interesting. We weren't flashy, says Mark today. Sam says yes, but he shouldn't. Tom, I'd even start Pepe over Aubameyang and have Saka on the right-hand side and put Pepe on the left. I think Pepe on the left can work with his crossing. It's something that we're not trying. Really, really something that we're not trying. Matt Thornton says, I think Aubameyang needs benching if Martinelli is fit. Alexandra says the midfield was so slow today. Gary Hardy says, I didn't say Xhaka was the reason we lost, but he was not man of the match like people are saying. And that's fair enough. You're entitled to that opinion. That's fair enough. Matthew Hudson says, ha, 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 ha. If you thought Alba was the worst player, FFS, they were all poor. I didn't say he was the worst player at all. Those words did not come out my mouth. Oh, I'm just not having people abusing players. I'm sorry. Just not having it. Ray Anderson says, Brighton, they said he has a slight calf injury. I believe that's Marie and Tierney have their injuries. It's just from overplaying. It's just the amount of games that they've played, the amount of times that they play in succession is going to lead to muscle tightness. And you can't risk, if a player says their muscles tight and you play them, it's just going to risk injury, and it's just pointless. Kian says, honestly, I cheered every tackle because I know people hate him for his defending. But, what's the but, Kian? Let's hear the but. I'll get to your point when you get that next one in. Saeed says, in my opinion, Arteta should have subbed our Xhaka off with Partey instead of Ceballos today. It will increase the tempo of the game, but it will make quite risky defensively. I thought Partey was a bit shaky when he came on. He grew into the game. Again, the options off the bench for us. You were looking kind of at Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, Laka, Aubameyang as your front four. And on the bench, we've got Willian, Pepe, and Nketiah as our offensive options. And you aren't looking at any of those guys and going, yeah. But yeah, we so clearly need like one of them to come on. None of them were going to change the game. None of them were going to change the game today, which is really, really, a really weak bench. And it shouldn't be weak because the amount that they've cost us. Really, the amount that they've cost us. Keane said offensively he was poor, but fans are so against him. They always blame the guy. Always my right back. Fair play, Keane. And I think that's a fair assessment. I think saying that he was poor offensively, which I think he was for 70% of the match, but brilliant defensively is the right way to kind of assess Bellerin today. I thought he was, overall, I was happy with his performance. But people turn around and say he was terrible. I don't really understand that side of things. Tulip, thank you so much. Tulip is finally a member. You've been in our chats for a long time, mate. And thank you for signing up as a member. Really appreciate your support as always. Gunnar Pedro says, Alba's credit in the bank is quickly becoming another poor excuse. He seems to be an older Nketiah nowadays. Besides poaching, he's adding nothing to our team. Jay W says, Tom, Xhaka was great, Bellerin was great, and James Earl Jones was Darth Vader. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to Hugh Izzy's watch along, mate. Nana GK says, Arteta didn't mean anything by it. He just wanted to kick the ball back in. I thought it was great. I thought that was great. I love that. Absolutely love that. Ibrahim says, the system Arteta wants to play needs way more technical players in at least 5 positions. Daniel says, I wouldn't say brilliant defensively when Bellerin's all out. He's out of position. He was out of position for one movement. And I was counting and looking at it purposefully. He was out of position in one moment. There was a quick turn, and quick turnovers of play are very, very different. When he's attacked on the right-hand side, as in the ball is on the right-hand side, he's attacking as a quick turnover. It's not being caught out because you are attacking in that sense. If the ball is on the left-hand side and he is in advanced area and gets caught out when a ball is quickly switched, that's being out of position. But if Arsenal are in possession and attacking down the right-hand side, Arsenal lose possession and there's a quick turnover, that's not Bellerin being caught out of position. That's not how it works, because that's what you want from an attacking fullback. Because in that case, Tierney would get caught out of position all the time. But we don't look at it that way because he's so much more effective in the final third. And when there's a turnover of play, typically we've got quite a good left-sided centre-back in Marie or Gabriel to cover that. But yeah, I really don't understand the hate towards Bellerin today. It was absolutely mental. Pranjal says Smith Rowe was not good. Lacquer was not involved and the tempo was very, very slow. Ed Welch says, I think this game highlighted to me how 70% of the squad is sellable. We have a half-decent first 11 when fully fit, but our depth and rotations are poor. Alex says, through an unbiased view, I think Bellerin had a good game today defensively. In attacking positions, the one critique I would have had is that he passed the ball too gently, slowing down the pace of the attack. A really good assessment and one that I don't disagree with, Alex. And thank you for the unbiased side of things. Hader H says the reaction from a lot of fan base is way too over the top, man. We aren't going to win every single week. We won our last 4 games. We won our last 4. It's not like we lost hugely to Crystal Palace. We defended well today and we were really kind of toothless in the final third. That is going to happen eventually. We are going to drop points. If your expectation is we win every game from now until the end of the season, that's just not realistic. We are going to drop points in these games against the likes of Palace. It is going to happen. It is going to happen. And you can't look at Crystal Palace and going losing 7-0 to Liverpool. It's just different. We're just not Liverpool. It's just a very... And to be fair, Palace played the game in which Arsenal have struggled a lot. In defence, Palace were excellent defensively. Absolutely brilliant defensively today. And on the counter, they really tried to hurt us. And we dealt with their counter-attacks. We dealt with them. They didn't. The only times they ever got in with their chances was the save that Leno had to make from MacArthur when it was like the knee, and then that long, and then the header from Benteke. They were the 2 chances. The other chance they had was Xhaka brilliantly defending, running back, doing really well. Other than that, there wasn't a threat from Crystal Palace, and the ones that they made in the counterattacks, we dealt with. We dealt with that. Let's have a look. I think we had a new member sign up somewhere. Let me just... Have I missed that? Matt Thornton. Thank you, Matt. Absolute legend. You tune in for a lot of these shows. Appreciate your support. If you and Tulip have signed up as expert members, I'll be making sure to send a new link in for the Discord straight after the show, where there's some fantastic people, even though I disagree with Danny Boy. Daniel Roberts, one of our good long-term listeners. And it's, as I say, entitled to your opinion, as long as you're not abusive, as long as you're not claiming things to other people. I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Jason says, okay, we wasn't great tonight, but positives were a clean sheet and didn't lose to keep our unbeaten run going. Thank you for your positivity, Jason. It's really appreciated. Frederick says, Xhaka was really tired in the last 30 minutes. He was good at the back, but a little sloppy with the ball. That is natural when you're tired. Alba's first 20 minutes was pretty good, holding your man of the match. Really good assessment of the game, Frederick. I think that Xhaka was very tired at the end. The back and forth, like the way the play kept moving backwards and forwards, we needed Partey to start, like to deal with that athleticism of the game, and it kind of was not. Xhaka's not great in transition when we're hit on the counter. He's good in with the passing out to the wide areas, but I thought Xhaka really missed Tierney today. I think Tierney makes Xhaka better by being that option on the left-hand side. The amount of time Xhaka had the ball in the middle of the park, looked up, and there was nothing. Maitland-Niles was static. There was no movement. And the runs that Maitland-Niles did make were really poor. What I don't get is how we've come into this tonight and Maitland-Niles is getting... I'm calling him Maitland-Niles because he doesn't deserve the tag of Mainsley this evening. How Bellerin and Xhaka are getting more pelters than Maitland-Niles. If that doesn't tell you what the fan base is, I don't know what will. I don't know what will. Jashar says the attacking players looked leggy after Newcastle, plus Palace had 2 extra days off. They did look leggy. Palace were a lot fitter than us today and defended excellently. Tulip said, thank you for welcoming Tom. A win would have been good. Birthday gift, but defensively strong performances. Happy birthday, mate. I hope you had a good day bar the Arsenal result. Always a good character to have in our chat boxes. Iron Cub says, Arteta purposely not creating chances against Palace so the Cronkies fork out money for Buendia. If there was ever a game where there was evidence for me that the argument to not have investment in a creative attacking midfielder, it is today. This is why I don't see the argument that the likes of Drew, who I know is not here to defend himself, me and Drew have had debates about this. He feels we shouldn't be going for a Buendia. We shouldn't even be going for a creative midfielder because it would block, that would obviously upgrade upon Smith Rowe. He doesn't feel that we should go for that. I just don't see that point of view personally, and he's free to correct me if I've quoted him incorrectly, and I'm sure he will. I just don't see the theory and the thinking behind us not getting in someone of that creative kind of mindset. If it doesn't happen in this window, I'm still okay with that. I'm okay with it. I'm not happy about it. I'm okay with it because hopefully we'd get one in the summer. But if we don't, and we put all of our eggs into the Emile Smith Rowe basket, who I've got all the faith in the world is going to develop into a great player, then I think you clutch him. You really are clutching at straws to try and hope that Emile Smith Rowe is never going to have a bad day, which he did today. Emile Smith Rowe his final ball just was not quite there. He tried. He was dynamic. He kept trying to do the little interchanges of play, but he lost the ball a couple of times. And his final ball in the final third just was not there. And I don't think this was a performance of an Arsenal side that we'd seen earlier on in the season. I don't think it was anywhere near as bad as that. But it just lacked that final touch, final pass, final thing. But other than that, I'm okay with what I saw today. Mark Foxwell says, I swear a lot of people have a short memory in this chat. Maybe. I think people are entitled to their performances, their opinions, as long as they're respectful. But yeah, other than that, just, Glenn Cook says the safe passers / players alongside our more progressive players created a disjointed attack because they are on a different wavelength. And we just don't have like that synergy in the players, and the chemistry between the players isn't there. And yeah, we're just really lacking in that department. We just can't quite have that. I do come back to Aubameyang because him on that left-hand side, in the way that we're playing, it worked like in the 3-4-3 style. It worked him on the left-hand side because we were able to hit teams on the counter, play the ball over the top to him, and we had the extra wing back to overlap, and we were covered by the extra centre back. But it just isn't working. It's really, really, really not working. Pedro says it's not blatantly obvious that it's going to take another 2 years to change this squad into something that Arteta wants. Luckily, our younger players will still be around by the time that it does happen. Marvick, don't rate Ozil, says the problem. I always think if you have to dedicate your entire account into a negative view of a player, I question you. I question you. But he says the problem these days, people don't watch the game. They watch the players they hate in hope. I mean, unless your name is about someone else, the hypocrisy, the level of hypocrisy in your name, Marvick, if that is indeed your name, I find that hard. I find that really difficult. Oh, dearie me. Daniel Roberts says, I'd take a loss and accept a £15 million bid for Pepe. Wow. Alex says, Tom, as much as we wanted to see him, bringing Partey on seemed like a mistake as Danny was finding I thought Danny was tired, which is weird because he's barely played, but he looked tired when he came off. You're right in that he was finding the passes and the spaces in behind, and he was the one kind of doing things in the middle. But I thought in the second half, he was not affecting the game anywhere near as much as he was in the first half. So I wasn't too I wasn't too annoyed at the change. I thought that Xhaka was getting a little bit overrun in the counter-attacks, and maybe it would have made more sense for Partey to play instead of Ceballos. But if you've got Partey and Ceballos, in my mind, it leaves you a lot more open than if you play with Partey and Xhaka. So that's kind of my thinking behind that, which goes to show that we need another centre midfielder. Like, we need to add another centre midfielder in the upcoming summer, for sure. You can't hate Tom. You can't hate him, Tom, for speaking facts. I don't hate anyone. Saeed says the watch along didn't work today. We're still unbeaten. Like, we didn't lose. So, you know, we didn't lose, mate. That's the positive. Daniel Roberts says, I've already given up on Pepe. I really thought those Europa games would have upped his game, but no, it didn't. Victor Edwards says, would you accept a sub 20 million offer for Aubameyang in the summer? No. Jesus Christ. Oh, man. Check Perk in the chat, who I did time out earlier for abusing a player, but I only timed him out, so he's back. I know Tom hates negativity, but anyone else leaving AFT for good as well? I mean, you can tune in if you want. I choose not to. I like to listen to what Lee has to say sometimes, but usually not there. It's just my view. I think there are much better places to get your Arsenal content. Thapello says, Bellerin, who is one of our... I'll be honest with you, Thapello, you are one of our more negative viewers. Says, Bellerin made no forward passes in the second half. Aubameyang shouldn't be playing at left wing back. He is a striker. I'm actually disgusted by his performance. No movement. He was just counting his money. I agree about Bellerin in the second half. I'm glad that you weren't about the whole game. I'm glad that you only said specifically in the second half. And yeah, Aubameyang he's a striker, but he's not really offering us much, even when he plays at striker. So there you go. Dubo20 says, 4 weeks ago, we were hoping not to lose games. I can take the point on the chin and go again. Yeah, I said, I think ultimately, if you are looking at this game and going, we're back where we were, I think that's very exaggerative. I think we are not back where we were at all. I think it's a little dip. It's a little dip, which sucks, which absolutely sucks. And what you'll be glad to know, if you need cheering up, tomorrow's podcast, which as always is at 8:30 p.m. UK time after every league game, involves a very comedic lineup of Mike, Andy, and Owen. So make sure you tune in tomorrow at 8:30 for what I'm sure will be a very comedic podcast. So make sure you tune in for that 8:30 tomorrow. Thank you, Dan, for your support, mate. I know I disagree with you this evening, which is fine. It'd be boring if we all agreed, but I appreciate your support, mate. Check Perk says TUT and Deluded G are the best. You see, I can even time out Check Perk for 5 minutes and he's still here supporting me because he understands. He knows the rules and he knows that he did wrong. So appreciate you always being in the chat box, mate. Absolute legend. Ed Welch says, where else do you get to see flying fish debates? There's been no flying fish in the chat this evening because we haven't won, which is absolutely fine. I think it should just be for the wins. Otherwise, it devalues the value of the flying fish, to be fair. Tulip says, we didn't manage the game very well. Saka came on at left wing back and we stopped going from the channel. The thing is, though, I think that was kind of the right move tactically because Mainsley was so poor. Sorry, Maitland-Niles. He doesn't deserve the Mainsley tag today. He was so poor. I might have to actually remove him from the mantelpiece. I think we may have to replace, after that performance, I think we're going to have to replace Ainsley Maitland-Niles from the portraits. I mean, the question has to be who goes in his place. I think there's only one man that's going to take up a position on the mantelpiece. On the mantelpiece? No, in the picture frames. I think it's going to have to be Kieran Tierney. I think Kieran Tierney is going to have to go up. I think it's just what it's going to have to be. Kieran Tierney is going to have to go in, isn't he? He's the only one. Kieran, get Bellerin in. Get Bellerin in. Anything to get Bellerin in. Thoughts on Tierney as future captain, Ray? I think, and thank you for the donation, by the way, mate. I think it's ultimately it has to happen. It has to happen, mate. Chet Perk says, I don't think you can blame fans for being negative after they told them the game was dreadful. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying about negativity is I think I can be critical of fans who think we have gone back to where we were after this game. I don't think that's what we saw today. Defensively, really solid. Final third, but the final touch, the final pass was really kind of lacking and we just weren't clicking. Just wasn't there today. Was not our game at all. And if you look at the context of the whole season, if you look at us this season in the context of it all, this is way nowhere near the bad as we have been. Nowhere near as bad as we have been. Mark Foxwell says, Tom, have you seen Bellerin's recovery series on his YouTube channel? I'm 4 episodes in. I think 4 or 5. And it's very good. I really like it. It's a really good documentary. Really, really good. Matthew Hudson says, yep, it was right tactically, but I knew that Pepe wouldn't offer anything since we don't drive forwards. And yeah, and maybe that's where Nelson needs to be given an opportunity of his energy more than Willian is on the bench. Willian not coming on, I think, is a positive. But our bench looked really weak in terms of like changing the game. There was no one. You didn't look at the bench and go that Willian, Nketiah, or Pepe, any of them, you didn't think we're going to change the game. Really, if we're honest, I don't think anyone were. Yannick Max says, who starts against Newcastle? Can't drop Sabas and Xhaka after. Is that Yannick praising Xhaka? Are we witnessing? Is this the day where Yannick actually has praised Xhaka? I mean, Martinelli, if he's fit, has to start over Aubameyang. Lacazette keeps his place. Emile Smith-Rowe has to because he's the only creative attacking player we've got. Saka continues at right wing with Tierney coming in. We have to play a left-footed centre-back. So if Marie is deemed not fit, Gabriel must come in, has to come in. Holding continues. Bellerin continues. And that's your team. Martinelli, Laka, Emile Smith-Rowe and Saka as a front four with Xhaka and Ceballos. But I'd be tempted to put Partey in because I think that Xhaka may need a rest after today. Not because he was bad, just I think that he might need a rest. He was exhausted by the end of the match, really tired. So maybe you have to put Partey in. But it's a big debate. Really big things. Really, really big things. Hilmi says, wrap things up, Tom. I will wrap up when I am good and ready, Hilmi. I will wrap up when I am good and ready, son. Danny Roberts says, Bellerin should have spent that time reading books, how to... What, Dan, what is this? What you are? Come on. Do not turn into a Christopher Fung of the chat box. I swear. You're going to fall out. We're going to fall out, mate. We're going to fall out, son. Czech says Pepe is going to be a tough conundrum for Arsenal to unlock. No idea what we do with him, but we can't afford these kind of expensive mistakes. Nick Gurr says, don't get me wrong, I love Ainsley, but he's simply not good enough. A says we need Solomon. Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. Tapello says, imagine Bellerin putting the same energy to football as he does his filming. Imagine your first thought. You know, it really bothers me when people criticize players' personal lives. They're allowed personal lives. If you're not happy with it, honestly, it really bothers me. They're allowed personal lives. Their mental health needs a personal life. I really don't understand it. I really, really don't. If your employer in the future was like, I'm sorry, what are you doing? Like, in seeing your mates, watching YouTube, like, what are you doing? Why aren't you fully committed to learning how to do your job better when you're not playing football? I just don't buy it. I think it's a ridiculous rhetoric, a real ridiculous rhetoric. Guna Pedro says, Xhaka gave it 110% tonight. Yes, he made mistakes, but can't fault the work rate to right his wrongs tonight. Spot on, mate. Liam, you're such a knobhead. Oh, Mano says, Tom fell for the reading the name. Did I? No! Did I fall for it? Whose name was it? Did I fall? No way. Did I actually fall for it? Oh, no, I actually did. Well, if that's a shame, then I'd implore you to start a new account, actually, so you can get blocked for having that name. I mean, it's a shame if you have to do that. That's a real big shame, and you should be ashamed of yourself if that's the case. Cookie Monster says, we need quality midfielders. Sabas is leaving at the end of the season. And our 10 is an inquiry-prone 19 or 20-year-old. Xhaka was good. We do need quality midfielders. We need someone in that creative area, which is certainly something that, we need quite Sabas is leaving at the end of the season. Sorry, my head's gone, utterly gone. I'm a bit annoyed about that, to be honest. It's a shame there's these bad people in the world. Jashar says, Tom, 4 clean sheets in a row. When's the last time that happened? It's a really good positive to take to the end of the game. Really, really positive that we've kept that clean sheet. Defensively, as I've said throughout the whole show, it's really good. It's really strong. That I'm glad that we've ultimately done that. So it's that final third that we need to work on, hopefully ahead of Newcastle. We can really kind of change things. But what's the thing with Martinelli is he's very energetic and he gives you that. But he's not the player that unlocks the door for me. It's not the player that unlocks things. So, yeah, that's a shame. That's a shame. Craig says, big decisions to be made in the summer. Whom would I sell? I think there's plenty of players. I could be here for absolute... I could be here for ages talking about the players I think we should move on, which is a real shame because Arsenal should have recruited better. They haven't. FT Music TV says today's issue was no one was testing their keeper, which is, we didn't really put any shots on goal. Mainsley had a really tame effort on goal. But other than that, I thought he was all right. Sam says Leno pulled off another great save today. Absolutely spot on. Ed Welch says we missed Joel Campbell. Oh dearie me. This is the part of the show where things just go. We're exhausted. The show's exhausted. And we're going to finish up things there. Thank you so much, people, for tuning in. Apologies for some people trying to be idiots in the chat today. That's a shame. But yeah, it's just something that we move on from. And we move forward to the next one. It's a shame that we didn't manage to win today, but yeah, we move forward, and there's nothing else that we can do other than stay positive, as we always try to do. Join us tomorrow 8:30 for the podcast, 8:30 p.m. with Drew. Got Drew on my mind with Mike, Andy, and Owen. We'll be here on Saturday. We'll be having an expert members podcast. We're joined by a few of the members. To have a chat about things, which I look forward to as always. Always good to talk to you members on the channel and get more people on that have not been on before. If you'd like an opportunity to come on the show and have a chat with myself, then join up as a member and help support the channel in the same way as well. So smash that like button, as Coleman says. Joined over from the Fraud Gang. Much appreciate your support, mate, and I hope you enjoyed the watch along. The unbeaten run continues. It's not a winning streak, but it is an unbeaten run. I will see you again very, 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 very soon. But other than that, it's been a pleasure to speak to you as always. Tomorrow also is Friday, so that means Let's Talk Arsenal at 5 o'clock. So I look forward to having a chat with you guys for an hour about lots of stuff, Arsenal and non-Arsenal, and just, a nice discussion. So 5 p.m. and 8:30, 2 shows coming at you tomorrow. Other than that, it's been a pleasure to speak to you as always. I'll see you again very, very soon. Up the Arsenal.